have the greatest job at Texas A&M University, no question, working with the Sing Cadets. Sing Cadets are one of 3 choral groups at Texas A&M. The first group, they were founded, and I'll tell you a little bit about Sing Cadet history, but then later, and choral activities kind of took the path that Texas A&M University did. When Texas A&M made those changes in the 1960s, we formed a mixed group, and then we had so many ladies that wanted to sing, and we formed a women's chorus as well. But I kind of want to do it in 3 different sections here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sing Cadets history. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our travel, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Bush years and the great experiences that we had there. The Sing Cadets Texas A&M University started in 1876. Just 17 years later, in 1893, the Sing Cadets were formed as the all-male glee club at Texas A&M University. During those formative years, or during the early years, from 1893 to about 1940, it was kind of on again, off again, and when it was started, it actually not only had students, but it also had faculty members. And the earliest picture that we have of the Sing Cadets is from the 1894-1895 year, and we've got that at the new Music Activity Center. If you haven't been to the new Music Activity Center, located at 801 George Bush, you need to come see it. It's quite the event, and just holler at me and I'd be glad to give you a personal tour of the Music Activity Center and have you there and expose you to that. But Sing Cadets founded in 1893, began to take tours in the early 1900s. Early on, most of our concerts were sponsored by Aggie Moms Club, and that's still true even today. And so they would go out, but just like to Snook or Hearn or, pretty close, Huntsville, those kind of things. And over the years, that expansion just continued to happen. In 1939, the all-male glee club decided they were gaining a lot of notoriety at that point. And so they decided, we're going to change our name because the all-male glee club is just pretty boring. And so they decided to change their name. And the way they did that was they had a student body naming contest. And so they put it out there, and the student body made nominations as far as what this group would be called. Well, they chose the name the Texas A&M Sing Cadets because at that point, of course, Texas A&M was all male and all military. And so they became the Texas A&M Sing Cadets. They sang for the very first time under their new name on January 1st, 1940 at the Sugar Bowl. And if you know your Fighting Texas Aggie history, you know the Fighting Texas Aggies won the national championship that day, the 1939 national champion on January 1st, 1940. And we are currently waiting for our second invitation, as are a lot of Aggie fans. And so, but we're getting closer. Today's a National Signing Day, and we're going to have one of the top signing classes at Texas A&M, so we're excited about that. So in the 1960s, some key events happened at Texas A&M. First of all, Texas A&M went non-reg, meaning you could come to Texas A&M and not necessarily going to full-time military service. So the Sing Cadets made that decision at the same time. We became open to any student that wanted to audition for the Sing Cadets. So we do have some guys that are in the Corps of Cadets and some guys that are not. And if you look really closely at haircuts, you can figure out which ones are and which ones aren't. It's usually pretty easy to tell. So we've been non-reg for almost 60 years now. The other change that Texas A&M made was to inviting the ladies to come to Texas A&M University. And now, I think our 12th day of class numbers were 72,000, and it's about 50-50 male-female. Some early on events happened with the Sing Cadets in those formative years. The Sing Cadets were invited to sing for a church service at the White House when Richard Nixon was president. They actually got invited to be on the Bob Hope Christmas show. And so they went down to San Antonio. They were going to film the Bob Hope Christmas show down in San Antonio. They went down there and spent 4 days, all these shoots, all this. But guess what? When they rolled the Bob Hope Christmas show, the Sing Cadets were never included. And so, and I'll tell you another story, kind of how that happened. Sing Cadets also gained a little notoriety with the television coming on and becoming more and more popular with Miss Teenage America. And they sang and were the escorts for Miss Teenage America. Later, in my era, from about 1999 to about 2011, we sang for Miss Texas USA, back when Miss Texas USA was broadcast. and they had sponsors, and so we did that for about 12 years with them. Also, on one of those Miss Teenage America events, they invited Sergio Franchi. Anybody remember that name? Sergio Franchi, kind of an Italian tenor. And he sang the song, "No Man is an Island," with the Sing Cadets on the Miss Teenage America. It was so well received that Sergio Franchi was invited to be on the Ed Sullivan Show. And so they contacted the Sing Cadets and said, "We would like for the Sing Cadets to come to New York and be on the Ed Sullivan Show." And so they were going to be right at the end of the show and sing with Sergio Franchi and all this. And if you get out there on YouTube, you can actually do Sing Cadet Sergio Franchi. You can find all this. But there was another group on the Ed Sullivan Show earlier who ran over, and they ran out of time, and the Sing Cadets were never on the Ed Sullivan Show. But they said, "Never fear, we're going to invite you back, and we'll be on a later show." So they were optimistic about that, but in the meantime, Ed Sullivan passed away. And so those two events early on that were just kind of interesting. I am the 13th director of the Texas A&M Sing Cadets. How did I become director? So it's kind of funny coming to College Station and to Texas A&M. Everyone else in my family, uncles, aunts, brothers, sister-in-laws, everyone else in my family went to Texas A&M University except me. I was born in Houston, I raised there for the first 12 years, then moved to Jasper, Texas, over in East Texas, and did junior high and high school there. But I wanted to major in music, and Texas A&M was not the place to come major in music. So being the good Baptist boy that I was, I went to Baylor University. And I did my undergrad there. One thing of note there, had a great time, had lots of opportunities. But while at Baylor, I was the Baylor Bear trainer, the little mascot, for 3 years. And so got to go to all the football games and take the Bear back in the days, and we could travel with the Bear. Lots of great opportunities. I then went on to and did my master's degree at Southwestern Seminary. And I thought that the church music was going to be the path that I would take. And so then in the fall of 1988, First Baptist College Station called and said, "We would like for you to come and interview to be our new director of music at First Baptist College Station." And I was like, "You got to be kidding. You know, I was Mr. Bobby Baylor, and going to College Station, not too sure about that." And it just felt like that's what I was supposed to do, and felt God's impression that that's what I was supposed to do. So I started as Minister of Music at First Baptist College Station, January 1st, 1989. Just so happened that 6 years later, my accompanist for First Baptist College Station was also the accompanist for the Texas A&M Sing Cadets. Bob Boone decided to retire, and I'll talk about previous directors here in just a second. He decided to retire, and she said, "You really need to do this." And I said, "I'm really not interested. You know, it's bad enough for this Baylor Bear living in College Station, but working for A&M?" And they hired someone to take Mr. Boone's place, and it didn't work out. So she came back to me about 3 months later and said, "I'm telling you, you need to think about this." So I said, "Okay, I'll think about it." Well, long story short, I started in August of '95. I thought College Station was going to be a blip on my radar, just passing through. And it turns out that it has been the absolutely most fantastic place to live and to raise a family. My brothers and sister-in-laws will all tell you that I'm the biggest Aggie of all of them now. And they could not wait, when I told them about the job, they could not wait to call me and say, "Yeah, we finally got you, didn't we?" And so I've loved my time. This is my 27th year. As I said, I'm the 13th director, and so they had a lot of directors in those early formative years. But in 1944, Pop Turner became director of the Sing Cadets, and he directed from 1944 to 1960. In 1960, Bob Boone became the director, and he directed from 60 to 95, and I've been there since 95. So I'm just the third director since World War II of the Sing Cadets. It's a great job. If you didn't have an administration, it'd be really fun. But if you, and we just kind of ride along with the changes, even as you have seen yesterday with the announcement of a new performing arts center that's coming to Texas A&M University. So exciting times ahead. So I became director in 1995. Well, Mr. Boone was a legend. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to have to do something just to say I can play ball. And so in May of 1996, at the end of my first year, we took the Sing Cadets and did a debut performance at Carnegie Hall. and at St. Patrick's Cathedral, and I'll tell you that story here in just a second, and then at the Kennedy Center. So we did Carnegie Hall and the Kennedy Center, all in a week-long tour to New York and to Washington, D.C. Fred McClure, who some of you may know, actually sang with us in the Kennedy Center, and we still have a recording of that, of him doing that, that's still available for people to purchase, obviously called Live at Kennedy Center. And so that's still available and out there. Well, on that trip, singing for so I got Carnegie Hall, I got Kennedy Center, I wanted to sing at St. Pat's Cathedral. We were also on CBS This Morning, their news show, and did coming in and out of commercials kind of thing. And so just had a great experience. But singing at St. Pat's Cathedral, we were also supposed to sing and had permission to sing for the Yankees game. And then we were going to sing for an early service at St. Pat's and then go and do the baseball game, the Yankees. And the Cardinal decided that he wanted us to sing for the late service instead of the early service. And so we had to choose between St. Pat's Cathedral and the Yankees baseball game. And the guys didn't get a vote, or I know how they would have voted. My first commitment was to St. Pat's Cathedral, so we ended up not being able to do the Yankees game, and there's some of them still upset about that I made the wrong choice, but just great experiences. We normally travel every third year internationally, and Bob Gates really put a challenge to Texas A&M University that we would like every student to have an international opportunity, and we have done that, and we were doing that a little bit previously. But we decided we're going to take that upon us. And so ourselves, Women's Chorus, and Century Singers travel every third year, and we rotate through. So we always have one of our student groups in May, and usually from the May 15th to June 1st or whenever Memorial Day is at the end of May. They travel during that break, and we take one of our student groups overseas internationally. In my 27 years, we've been on 6 continents and had great experiences, and I'll tell you a little bit about those and some of the stories. I've got stories and could go on for days, but I won't bore you with those. And I can only share with you the stories that I can share with you. There are many more, probably, traveling with a group of 60 guys that are 18 to 23. There's a lot of stories that just aren't fit to tell. And so, you may say on some of the stories I share, that should have been one you didn't tell. But anyway, so we decided in 1999, I had a contact in England, and her husband was a sir and had been knighted, and so she set a tour up for us. So in 1999, we went to England. And of course, going to England, I went to sing in St. Paul's Cathedral, and we had that opportunity, and wonderful opportunity. We also sang at Windsor Castle, and when we sang at Windsor Castle, we got out there and we were all lined up, had on our spiffy uniforms ready to go and sing at Windsor Castle. And the guy gets up to introduce us and he goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome today the University of Texas Choir." And I was just like, okay, guys, just keep it down. Let's don't say anything. Let's just sing. But so that's the one time that we were advertised as the University of Texas Choir. 2 years later, because of a rotation that changed just a little bit, we went back to England, but we not only wanted to see England, we wanted to see England, Scotland, and Wales. Once again, we went to St. Paul's Cathedral, and I have a whole different story about that. But we also went to Eton College and sang at Eton College. And when we sang at Eton College, we had the opportunity to sing for Prince William and Prince Harry. And so that was a unique opportunity. So it was a Sunday afternoon concert you sing 30 minutes, it has to be all a cappella, and it was a Sunday afternoon concert. So we arrive at St. Paul's Cathedral, the guys go in, they take us all downstairs in the basement. Well, the basement is the crypt, and then down at the end of the crypt, there's a room where we can change clothes into our formal uniform. So we change into the formal uniforms. Well, at the end of the concert, we finish, we all go back down, we change back into our street clothes. I'm making sure everything's gone, and, nobody leaves anything and looking around and all this kind of stuff, and they're all skedaddling. So I'm the last one out. I go to leave St. Paul's Cathedral, the crypt. And so all the monuments and graves are down there in the crypt. Well, I go to the door to leave, and guess what? It's locked. It's locked. And there are these huge iron doors. And so I'm banging like, "Let me out of here!" And I was down there probably for 20 minutes or so, and nobody could hear me. They had all loaded up on the bus. very fortunate somebody realized, hey, we don't have Mr. Kipp. So they did come back and let me out, but I thought, holy cow, I'm going to be here in the crypt for the weekend. And so that was that trip. Also in that trip, we joined the Nottingham Men's Choir, and we sang there. The gentleman ranged all the way from like 40-something, and there was actually a 100-year-old man, and we sang together in a concert with them. I actually met the sheriff of Nottingham. That's a real thing. And so that was a great opportunity. In 2004, we went to Australia, Sydney, Melbourne, and Canberra. Our concert was sponsored by the ambassador to Australia. And we sang at a church service on a Sunday morning, and they had a little reception for us afterwards. And one of the people, so this is 2004, so you can think timing and wars and all that kind of stuff, and the invasion of Iraq and all those kind of things that were going on at that time. And one of the ladies stopped Missy, who was my administrative assistant at the time, and said, you know, only thing we think about Americans are the history that we see and what they give us on TV. That's the only thing that we see. And so that's our opinion of Americans. And after meeting these young boys and hearing them sing, I realized that that's not true. And so having the opportunity all the way around the world in Australia at influencing someone about how they feel about America was a great experience for us. In 2007, we went to Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil. There we learned to salsa dance and all kinds of funny things. And so they brought these ladies in who would teach these guys how to salsa dance, you know, kind of thing. It was like a salsa classroom kind of thing where you learned, and to teach them. And then there was one guy, and so they were all taking turns dancing. So I kind of, you know, motioned to him and said something, and he went. He thought I was inviting him to dance with me, when actually I wanted him to dance with my wife. And so ultimately that did happen, but it's kind of funny. South Africa, we went in 2010 and learned a lot about apartheid and spent some time there. One of the things we did in South Africa while we were there also was to do a safari. And so just a great experience. But we were out there in the middle of nowhere, and one of my cadets was going down some steps and went to brace and put his hand through a glass window of a door. So here we are out there. We don't have buses. We're stuck in the middle of this area. They called someone in the middle of the night, and we go to the hospital at 100 miles an hour. You know, kind of, you know, you're driving through there where all these lines and all these animals that you're seeing are. And so we survived it, and he did a great job. In 2013, we had the opportunity to go to China. Just what a wonderful experience and great audiences. We were determined. I took my daughter with me on that trip, Kaylee, who's an A&M graduate and now halfway through her nursing degree at UT Tyler. And we decided before we went, whatever they put in front of us food-wise, we're going to eat. And we're going to try everything. And so they all came on Lazy Susans. All the meals were almost all identical. They all came on Lazy Susans, and you would turn it around and and we tried everything. We never asked what it was, but we tried everything. Some things were better than others, but that's my most memorable trip about China. In 2016, we went to the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary, so kind of a little bit of Eastern and Central Europe. And one of the interesting things that happened on that trip, great experience, especially in the Czech Republic, they travel with their black uniforms, and I always tell them, when you get there, because we do a concert in every major city that we go to, when we get there, hang up your uniform in the bathroom on the shower rod, whatever, turn the hot water on and steam your uniform so the wrinkles will come out. Great idea, right? Well, guy puts it in, then he goes next door and he starts playing 42 with some singing cadets, and little did he know that the bathtub did not drain, and so the water was pouring over. And so he didn't tell me. And so we go do our concert, and then we come back. When we get back, none of our key cards work the doors. And they're like, Mr. Kipp, we need to talk to you. And so I ended up having to pay for the damage and the lost room revenue that they didn't get for the rooms while they did that. So just interesting things always happen like that. People always ask me, what is the favorite place you've ever been? And my answer typically would have been All these places are different, and there are some special things about each one that I enjoyed until in 2019 we went to Greece. And when we went to Greece, I was like, whoo, hands down, this is it. And just had a great experience. It's interesting to see, anytime we travel to a country, we learn their national anthem, and we learn some songs that we sing. And so we have a great time interacting with the audience and just having great experiences with them. 2022 is supposed to be our next international tour, and we're not going to be able to do that because Texas A&M said we can't touch foreign soil. So our plan is to fly to Seattle and get on a cruise ship, sing on the cruise ship, sing in Seattle, and then sing in some of the ports and head to Alaska. And so that way we're still in the United States and can get by with that. One of the most interesting things for me, and one of the most things where I'm the most blessed, is that I was able to be director of the Sing Cadets in what I call the Bush years. And we all have had that privilege living in this community. In 1997, we were asked to sing for the dedication of the Bush Library with all the former presidents, former first ladies, Caroline Kennedy, and maybe most importantly, Billy Graham. And so just had that great opportunity. If you're a member of Singing, and it's still out there on YouTube if you want to look at it, but they had all the first ladies walk out together, and then they had all the former presidents and the current president, that time President Clinton, walk out together. When the first ladies were there, which included Lady Bird Johnson, was still living at that point, the Ross Volunteers are supposed to throw their swords up, and they're going to walk underneath the swords and up this big platform. And one of the Ross Volunteers got so enamored with here's presidents and here's first ladies and Billy Graham and Caroline Kennedy and all these people that when it came time, he didn't put his sword up. And so his roommate, and what roommates call each other, is old lady at Texas A&M. So he goes, "Hey, old lady." And Lady Bird Johnson goes, because she thought the young man was talking to her. And so quite the experience. We've been able, because of the Bush years, to meet all kinds of world leaders. And in 1998, we were asked to come and sing for a new award that they were going to present, the George H.W. Bush Award for Public Service. And it went to Mikhail Gorbachev. And so that was our first experience. We did a little concert out there in the little plaza outside with Mikhail Gorbachev. In 1999, he gave that same award to Helmut Kohl, who was the Chancellor of Germany. And they asked me at that point, they said, would you learn, this is kind of where our singing the national anthem started, would you learn the German national anthem? I was like, sure, let me get back to you. And so, of course, you go on Google and German national anthem, what's it based on a hymn? And so I knew the hymn, and I took German at Baylor. And so I can't speak it really, but I can pronounce the words. So I called him back and said, sure, we can do that, no problem. And so sure enough, when Chancellor Kohl was here, we sang the German national anthem. Well, about 6 months later, I get a call, and it says, George H.W. Bush was the ambassador to China. And they said, we have the largest delegation ever leaving China coming to the Bush Library for a China-U.S. conference. And so they were coming here in the year 2000. And so me being big head, I just finished singing the German national anthem. And they said, and we want you to sing the U.S. national anthem. I was like, okay. But I'll tell you what, if you really want us to, we'll learn the Chinese national anthem too. And so they said, okay, we'll check on it. Well, then they called me back and said, it would be the highest honor if you would learn the Chinese national anthem. And so I thought, so then I go to Google and look up the Chinese national anthem and realize the Chinese national anthem is nothing like the German national anthem. We worked and we worked and we worked. I had a lady from China that was in our food service area when we were in the Memorial Student Center, and she would actually come to our rehearsals and help us learn to pronounce. Well, in order for us to do this, because this was the largest Chinese leaders ever leaving the country together, to come do that, we had to be approved by the Chinese consulate in Houston. So the Chinese consulate came up to our rehearsal, we sang the national anthem, and his comment was, y'all sing it better than we do. And I was like, thank you. So the night comes for the conference. So we arrive, we sing the U.S. national anthem like we're supposed to, and everybody's going, whatever. And then we sing, and then the Chinese national anthem starts out with a trumpet. And I had the trumpet there, and it went, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba-dum, bum, ba 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 bum, 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 ba-da-da-da-da-da-dum, chi-lai. And we broke into the Chinese national anthem. The Chinese people stood, or they stood anyway when the trumpet started, but then they went crazy that this U.S. group had learned the Chinese national anthem, and they were all whooping, hollering, and just going crazy over us learning the Chinese national anthem. Well, we do our rest of our concert. We get to the end of the evening. Roman Papaduke, who's the head of the George Bush Foundation at that point, stands up and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for coming. This concludes our evening." President Bush stands up and says, "No, it doesn't. We're going to hear that Chinese national anthem one more time." And so we sang it again there at the end. The Bushes, one of the things I appreciate about them is their devotion to charity. And on President Bush's 75th birthday and on Mrs. Bush's 74th birthday, they donated their birthday to begin an endowment for the M.D. Anderson Cancer Center, the Bush Endowment for the M.D. Anderson Cancer Center. And they had an event at the Astro Arena, and it was star-studded. You know, you had all these people. The hosts typically were Reba McEntire and Scott Hamilton, the skater, at that point. Bruce Willis was one of the hosts. Gerald McCraney, who was Major Dad, if you know him from TV, was one of the hosts. And it came time for the Cadets to sing. And one of the great things is we want the Cadets to be present at whatever happens at Texas A&M. And so that's kind of been our goal. And these all came to be. Typically when the Bushes came to town, they'd invite the Aggie Wranglers to dance, and they'd invite the Cadets to sing at whatever events they had. And so we were blessed with that. But it came time for us to sing, and it was a televised event, and Gerald McCraney was supposed to introduce us. And he gets up there, and we can see the prompter. And so you got the audience sitting out here, and then there's kind of an elevated area over here that's the entire Bush family. And this is the year 2000, and George W. Bush is governor of Texas at that point, if you remember. And the entire Bush family sitting there. Gerald McCraney gets up, and we could see him going down the teleprompter. And he goes, this was in the prompt, but if you've never visited the Bush Library, you need to visit the Bush Library. And if you've never been to College Station, and then he starts going off script. And you can see the teleprompter going up and down, trying to find or where he is kind of thing. He said, there's so much land in College Station, and you need to see it. In fact, there's so much land in College Station, and he looks straight at George W. because he hasn't announced yet, and says that you could actually build another presidential library in College Station. So, and then he goes right back to the script, and we sing, but it was kind of a funny experience there with him. In the year 2002, First Lady Laura Bush made a visit to the Bush Library, and they asked us if we would present Yellow Roses to Mrs. Bush and sing one of our Texas songs to her, Yellow Rose of Texas. And so I said that'd be great, but would it be okay if I bring my 6-year-old Josh and my 4-year-old Kelsey and let them, while we sing Yellow Rose of Texas, let them present the Yellow Roses to the First Lady? And they said, let us check, because we all still had to do security stuff at that point. They called back and said, that'd be great. We'd love for that to happen. So we sing Yellow Rose of Texas, and they present Mrs. Bush, the First Lady, her Yellow Roses, and then we go and do the rest of our concert. Well, we had a keyboard outside, and there was a music stand. The wind was just blowing, and the wind was blowing my accompanist music like crazy, and she was having a hard time playing with both hands and trying to hold the music. So my wife walked over and just held her music there, and she left Josh and Kelsey, 6 years old and 4-year-old, just standing there kind of thing. Well, what does the First Lady of the United States do? She hands her Yellow Roses to the person that's with her. She goes and kneels down between Josh and Kelsey and watches the remainder of the concert with her arms around Josh and Kelsey watching the concert. Just an amazing lady. Well, President Bush wasn't at that event, but Mrs. Bush was. Mrs. Bush loves Cadets tennis shoes. And so when Cadets tennis shoes found out that she liked their tennis shoes, they shipped one of every color to her. But what did Miss Bush do? Between their place here in College Station, their home in Houston, and Kennebunkport, she split all her shoes up. Didn't matter what color they were. So there was a red one here, red right here, and there was a red left in Kennebunkport. anytime she wanted to go somewhere, she would just grab a right and a left, regardless of what color they were. And so you can see my 6-year-old, my 4-year-old, here's Mrs. Bush, Mrs. Barbara Bush, and they come down there and they're like, her shoes don't match. So it's kind of interesting that's what she does. The Ronan Tynan, who sang for President Bush, he's the Irish tenor, was there. And then here's the First Lady of the United States, here's Ronan Tynan, all these people. And the thing that my guys were enamored with is James Earl Jones was there, the voice of Darth Vader. And that's the thing that really impressed him was Darth Vader. And I've only been called to the president's office twice. One was for an event that we sang, and I sang a Negro spiritual that included Jesus in it. And so I got called in which I thought was a cultural song, but I didn't get in trouble, but I just had to pay attention. And so I was a little nervous because we got invited to sing in 2003 for when Ted Kennedy received the George H.W. Bush Award for Public Service. And so they said, it was in December, we want you to sing Christmas music, okay? So I ask, and what I do now is I send people, here's a list of what we are going to sing. Are you okay with that, or do we need to change anything? That way, if it ever comes back to me, I can say, we sent it to them and this is what they wanted. But on that occasion, so I said, so Christmas music, like you want us to sing Santa Claus is coming to town or Oh Holy Night? And they go, no, we want you to sing religious pieces as well, because the Bushes and the Kennedys are both very religious people. And so, but still, the guy who turned me in for singing the Jesus thing was also at that event. And so I was nervous in there the whole time. And so we sang, we did what they requested, sent them music, they approved it. And so we finished the evening and finished our last song. And President Bush stands up again, just like he did at the China conference. And he goes, let's sing some Christmas carols. And so I said, President Bush, what would you like to hear? Joy to the world, the Lord is come. And when he said that, I thought, okay, I'm okay. I don't think I'm going to get in trouble if that's what President Bush wants to sing. Those awards, too, have included 2004 Arnold Schwarzenegger. I got to meet Arnold Schwarzenegger. Then all of you remember 2004, the 41 and 80 Bush that we had on President Bush's 80th birthday. I have seen President Bush jump out of every airplane with the exception of World War II. But the rest of those events, we've been president. In 2007, we went to Washington, D.C. and sang at the White House and took a picture with George W. and First Lady Laura Bush. And we sang for the event where they welcomed the Olympic athletes back to and celebrated their success. In 2009, we were sent by Texas A&M University to Kenny Bunkport, and we were supposed to be the surprise ending from Texas A&M for George Bush's 85th birthday. And so we hid out, watched him jump out of the airplane, land there at St. Mary's Church, and then we went away, came back the next day, and Barbara Bush bought us dinner in town. So we were at a restaurant eating dinner, and we get this call, President Bush is not feeling well. Can you come as quick as you can? So we drop, in the middle of the meal, we run. We're supposed to dress at this boathouse. It's right across the street from where his birthday party is. We dress, then they come back and they say, he's feeling better now, so we'll just wait, And so we waited, and then give it 20 minutes, and no, he's leaving. And so he leaves. We come all the way to Kenny Bunkport to sing for his 85th birthday, and he leaves his own party. So luckily, it's also Barbara Bush's birthday, and they're only 4 days apart. And so we sing to Barbara Bush and sing happy birthday to Barbara Bush. Well, after that event, Neil Bush, who is his youngest son, came and said, we feel bad that President Bush was here. Can we take you out on Pappy's boat? I was like, sure. And so my guys are all in dress uniform, and he said, how many guys do you have? I said, about 60. He said, okay, we'll have to do them in 2 groups. Big boat. Well, the Kennedys have sailboats, and the Bushes have speedboats. And so we load up on this speedboat. Neil takes us out in the middle of the Atlantic, not in the middle, but out in the Atlantic Ocean to the 1 mile buoy out in the Atlantic Ocean. The water is just doing this, and I'm just hanging on. I'm on this trip by myself with 30 guys, whatever, and I'm just hanging on to the seat right behind Neil, and they're just bouncing. One guy bounces up. I swear he bounced this high, ripped his pants kind of thing, and then I just thought, and it was jet black. There was no moon. And I just thought, this is going to be my bonfire moment. You know, some guy's going to go over, and I'm going to lose up. So we come back, the other half wants to go, and so I'm like, okay. But I had my kids on this one, Josh and Kelsey, and so we just put them behind the seat. Kelsey had on President Bush's 41 life jacket, and put them behind the seat, held on to him. Well, luckily, Neil did something different or went a different direction, and it wasn't as bumpy on the second route. But I just thought, well, this is going to be my bonfire moment. Well, they felt bad that President Bush couldn't be there, and so they said, what are you doing Monday? And I said, well, tomorrow Sunday, we're singing at the Old North Church and touring Boston, and then we're supposed to be at the Kennedy Library and sing on Monday morning, but we don't have anything Monday evening. They said, would you come back and sing for an event at the Bush's home? I said, I'd be glad to come back and sing for an event at the Bush's home. So we came back. The guys were lined up behind the couch. I was behind at the kind of by the fireplace, and President and Mrs. Bush are sitting right here in front of me. George W. is right to my left. His girls are just to the left of him. We do our entire concert, and then they go, well, let's take a picture. I was like, okay. So President George H.W. Bush and President George W. Bush go, and George W. had just finished his term as president. They go and sit down on the couch. Well, my accompanist gets on this side of the singing cadets, so I go to get on this other side of the singing cadets, get on the other side. They said, no, sit on the couch with us. So I sit on the couch. Here's George H.W., there's George W., and me. And I said, which one of these is not like the other? And then George W. said, can we use this for our Christmas card? I said, the better question is, can I use it for my Christmas card? And just had a great experience there. We also sang it, got made up for it. We got to sing for the Red Sox-Yankees game as well. The other things included 2009, President Barack Obama came and visited Texas A&M University, and we got to sing for President Obama at that Bush event as well. It was interesting at the end of it that Barbara Bush got up totally off script. Best things happen off script. And she took the microphone and began to just talk about the Sing Cadets and said, I just want you to tell you how special they are to our heart. They came all the way up to Kennebunkport just to wish President Bush a happy birthday. And she was just sweet as she always is. Over the years, and I know time's slipping away, but one of the events, we did 3 events in 1 week, and the guys were just getting really tired, and they were, we're tired of doing these Bush things. And I said, guys, you got to realize every other choir in the United States, if not the world, would be dying to have 3 events with the Bushes, this week, and wish they could do that. And so it put it in perspective. In 2016, 5 years ago, we did the 75th anniversary of Pearl Harbor and did the event out at the Bush Library. And if you remember, he invited Bob Dole to that event. And then President Bush, they were always asking us to learn special songs. And I have more stories about that sometime later. But for Bob Dole, they asked us to learn You'll Never Walk Alone. When you walk through a cloud, hold your head up high. That song is said because it's Bob Dole's favorite song. So we learned it, and we sang it there for Bob Dole and President Bush. And Bob Dole just wept through the entire thing. And then a couple of weeks later, my office was having our Christmas party. So I had my boss, my boss's boss, they were all there, and we're eating down in the MSC in our area. My student worker comes down and says, Mr. Kipp, you have a phone call. And I said, can you just take a message? Well, it's Bob Dole, so you probably want to talk to him. So I went upstairs, and he just said, I just wanted to call and tell you personally, thank you. He said, I know you learned that song just for me, and I just wanted to say thank you. And I can't tell you what that means to me because that song means so much to me. You may remember us doing the One Appeal event out when all the former presidents came back as a benefit for Hurricane Harvey, people that had been injured or had things destroyed during Hurricane Harvey. And once again, we were the only A&M group asked to sing. And so we've just had these amazing experiences, and the amazing thing is these young men get to have this experience. On our second trip to Kennebunkport, we were at their home. And this was his 93rd birthday in 2017. And Sir John Majors, former Prime Minister from Great Britain, was there. And we did our concert, and then we finished. And John Majors said, I want to share something with you guys. And he stood up, and he said, in politics, when bad things happen or things aren't going right, politicians tend to distance themselves from you. And he said, in Great Britain, anytime anything went wrong, my phone was going to ring that afternoon, and it was going to be George Bush. He said, because when things weren't going right in Great Britain, George Bush drew closer to me instead of going away. And then he turned to the guys and said, gentlemen, that's what a true friend is. You know, and here we have former Prime Minister of Great Britain, former President of the United States, and they're talking about friendship and making this indelible impression on these 18 to 23-year-old men. You know, just an amazing, amazing experience. And then, of course, 2018, we had been planning for it for 20 years, over 20 years, but we sang for President Bush's final arrival into Aggie land. In 2017, we sang for Barbara Bush's graveside service the year before. And we sang, of course, when President Bush arrived in Aggie land as he was being unloaded from the train into the hearse to go to the graveside. And we did that event, and then I was walking away with my accompanist, and I just said, man, it's been an amazing ride. And just how blessed are we that we got to live in the era when the Bushes had a connection with Texas A&M University. And we're still doing some things with the Bush Library, but it's not what it was when they were here all the time. But they left an indelible impression on me and the guys, and all those opportunities those young men had to happen. And for every one story I shared, I got 10 more that I won't share. I want to go back to, and I want to end with Dallas, Texas. Dallas, Texas, we were doing a concert for the Dallas Aggie moms, and we did our concert. What I enjoy after the concerts, a week after usually, is get really positive letters. We stay in host homes. And I got a letter from a gentleman, and he said, I didn't want to come see some choir concert, but my wife agreed to keep 4 boys, and so we had to bring 2 cars so that we could bring the 4 boys home. And so I went to the concert. He said, I really thought that America is going to hell in a handbasket with our youth of today. He said, but after hearing those young men sing, and after having those young men in my home, I now have hope for America. Bush events, world travel, nothing's more important than that. And just that we get to take a little part and hopefully making somebody have more pride in their country, to learn about what a true friend is, to give them these opportunities. Like I said when I started, I've got the greatest job in the world, and I enjoy it. Thank you so much.